the rudder! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. Start converting your B2B audience today. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started today at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
The Hilton sale is on. Now through September 29th, you can save up to 20% on stays this fall and beyond. Long weekends, last-minute getaways, holiday gatherings. There's a Hilton stay for all of them. More moments, more experiences, more destinations. Now 20% off for a limited time because it matters where you stay. Don't wait. Book by September 29th and save up to 20% at Hilton.com. Terms apply. Hilton for the stay.
Hey, this is William Tincup and Ryan Leary, and you are listening and watching the You Should Know podcast. Our topic today is fighting ageism. So we're going to be talking about ageism, and we got Lauren on to kind of school us and take us through this topic. And so we're going to wander through it. Lauren, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys. Always interested in talking about this topic, among many others, and excited to dig in with you.
Awesome. Go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say, I have a problem with ageism.
Oh,
I am always mistaking for like a 20-year-old kid trying to be a man in the room.
You get carded at bars?
I do.
That's fair.
No, I don't. I wish I did.
I tip people that card me. At this point in my life, if anyone cards me like it's a mandatory or whatever, I give them $20. I'm like, dude, seriously? Cool.
Age to me sometimes is kind of like, and then I promise we'll get right into the topic, Lauren. But I kind of feel like you ever feel really good about yourself one day, and you're just kind of strutting along, and someone's like, "You feel okay, man? You look kind of tired today." I'm like, "Yeah, I thought I felt and looked pretty good."
Yeah, you sometimes just impacted me. Yeah,
I feel like I'm 20 or 25, and I feel like I look that age too. And then my kids say, "You got crow's feet." I'm like, what the hell's a crow's feet? And I'm like, wow. Like, I think I've entered into an older age. But that's not what we're talking about. It just
I told you this bit. I was doing a merit badge class. And it was just
he just joined the Boy Scouts.
No, I've been Boy Scouts since I was like 10. But anyhow, so there was just two kids, and it was on Indian lore. And I wanted to do it differently, so I pulled up ChatGPT, and I said, listen, we're not going to use Google. And one of the kids looks at me and said, yeah, Google's for boomers. I'm like, I'm going to steal that.
Sir, what is Google? What is Google?
Dang, we're going to use YouTube and ChatGPT, and they're both like, all right, cool. Like, just rolled with it like nothing.
Yeah.
But when he said Google is for boomers, I'm like, I'm definitely going to steal that, but it also kind of feels like my chest is tight.
It stings a bit.
It stings a bit.
It does.
Lauren,
it does.
Tell us a little bit about yourself before we get too far into this. What do you do?
Yeah, so I'm an HR consultant. So about 20 years of corporate HR experience kind of led me to the point where I started my own consulting.
Those are dog years. So that's 20 times 7. It's 140 years. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's a lot of years. So
but 20 years sounds less than 2 decades.
It does.
So
I like 20 years.
Like that. Yeah.
2 decades.
Yeah, definitely have the decades of experience. But...
Were you a generalist? Did you go and do some of the specialist work? Or
so I was mainly specialist work. So mainly, benefits, total rewards, and when I started the consulting business, I was primarily focused in that, but then quickly expanded into all areas, and now have a team of folks that are former professionals in the HR space that are now kind of doing a little bit of everything. In all functions of HR. So we just are focused on really kind of helping employers, mainly like HR teams and or business owners, when they have project needs, or maybe they have an opening on their team and they need someone to kind of fill the gap until they permanently replace them, or whatever the case may be. So we're kind of, HR expertise on demand, so to speak.
Do you do process and re-engineering and stuff like that, or do you do technology, any of that stuff?
Yeah, we do. We come in and do a lot of audits, and we can do compliance audits. We can do process audits. We can do a lot of recommendations around what we find there.
Right. We
also have project managers on the team who can kind of step in and help with implementations, whether it be system or new vendors.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's a little bit of everything. We can kind of leverage our former corporate HR expertise just in a new way, helping, HR teams and business owners when they need it. We don't have to be on the payroll. It's just when you need us, we're here.
Yeah, I love that. So, all right, let's get into ageism. So, fighting ageism. So what are you seeing currently in the market, and what are you, from your colleagues and friends and stuff like that, what are you seeing around ageism?
Yeah, it's something I think that, it's always been there, right? And it's always been there to the extent that we've even had to bake it into some federal laws around, being very careful about, having that affect our decision making or, someone's career trajectory. We really just kind of, I think there's misnomers out there, particularly as we continue to advance, technologically speaking, that there are people of a certain generation that aren't able to keep up with that or aren't able to contribute beyond a certain age. And I think that is becoming more and more apparent in today's space. You think about ChatGPT, like we were just talking about. There are a variety of different ways to do different things. It doesn't mean that one way versus another is wrong, but I do think that there's this misnomer, around, Facebook being for boomers, or Google being for boomers, or even, kind of starting to look at, Gen X as, a generation that is, past their time. And I just wholeheartedly disagree with that. I think that there are, some really, really disappointing themes that kind of, rear their ugly head when it comes to ageism. And I see that a lot of, HR teams who might be at larger companies are kind of, having to think more specifically about this topic and how do they train and or communicate on this topic. And I see a lot of, smaller businesses, business owners entrepreneurs who might be maybe making decisions for their business, based upon some misconceptions around age. And so that's ultimately what I'm seeing is just, these misconceptions are coming up more and more because of it, advancing technology. And we just, my position is we just got to kind of get ahead of that. Like we don't want to fall back into that pattern that we dug ourselves out of years ago. It's something that we need to continue to stay on top of.
Question about, and this, I guess it can be a really any size company. The individuals that are in position that are making these decisions on process or how they're handling ageism in the company or, approaching it. Do you find that these are, and this is going to be totally counterintuitive to everything we're talking about, are they older people? Or are they younger people running that show?
That's a really good question, because I think most of us typically think, when we think of ageism, that it's someone who is, maybe closer to retirement age or of an older generation who is experiencing the effects of that. But it can also be happening the other way around, particularly with new entrants into the workforce, especially as we're seeing, a lot of the, Gen Z, generation is just doing things differently and wanting different things out of their work. And so I think when you think about a workplace environment, it's the ageism's kind of happening at both ends of the spectrum here. I do think that the majority of leaders who are making decisions in an organization tend to typically be, part of an older generation,
Right.
mainly because they've worked their way through their career to get to a place where they are held as leaders. However, I think that there is also can be some ageism, amongst peers. There can be someone who is a leader, an executive leader, for example, who might feel that a certain department that's doing a lot of things manually don't have a lot of longevity within the company because, next year we're going to move that function to all be online. And not necessarily think that those folks who have been doing this work, for many years are able to elevate their game to manage something a little differently. And they might only be, maybe 5-10 years apart in age, So I think that it's it can also be a taboo topic, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think what often can happen is someone who might be falling into the ageism trap may not even realize it because they might be making some assumptions and stereotypes about certain individuals without necessarily understanding, the facts. To answer your question, I think the majority of them are probably closer to a retirement age, Gen X, maybe older, Gen Y, millennials. But I think that it's kind of happening on both ends here.
So the Use Case podcast is where technology vendors get to talk about themselves. And it's a wonderful place for vendors, investors, and practitioners to listen to the story of the solution, the features, the benefits, the attributes, etc. And we get to know the CEO or founder during the call, and we also get to know the tech. So subscribe to the Use Case podcast. Talk me off the ledge, because I'm going to say two things that y'all are both going to disagree with on some level.
This is code for close your ears if you're not too sensitive.
So I want you to both of you, I want you to close your eyes for a moment and think of a forest. Any forest, doesn't matter.
If my head nods, I just yell.
Yeah. So in that forest is young trees and old trees and little seedlings and all that stuff. Old trees die. New trees, that gives them the space and the light in which to grow. Okay, so now I'll tell you the two things. You can open your eyes.
I feel like I was just on a retreat somewhere.
Yeah.
Like a couple's retreat.
Well, there you go. That's where you went. That escalated quickly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say ageism is a good thing. And I'll tell you why I think it's a good thing. I'm pro-ageism for the moment until you'll talk me out of it. The main reason that we used to keep older people around was institutional knowledge. Mm-hmm. There were things in the organization not written down, and you needed Bob or Sally to stay because they had all of this knowledge that you needed to get out, so that you needed to make the same mistakes twice, or you could learn from it, whatever. Well, with business moving as fast as it is today, you don't need institutional knowledge, meaning it's overrated.
Right.
What we did 5 years ago, who cares? What we did 5 years ago is what are we going to do next 90 days? So institutional knowledge is not as important as it once was. That's point one. Point two, as you age, most people become entitled. They feel like they've earned it. Mm-hmm. And therein lies the rub. They feel like they've earned something, and you haven't earned anything. If you don't invest, if you're 50 or 55 or 60 or 65, wherever you want to start, wherever you want to end, if you're not continually learning and not being entitled, people are going to keep you around because you're relevant. Meaning the onus is not on the company. The onus is on the individual to be relevant. because no one's going to kick out someone that's relevant. They're just pruning branches that aren't relevant anymore. Now, Forrest, 2 points. What did I get wrong?
Lauren, I'll let you take it because I agree. Half. Yeah.
I agree with both of those points,
Okay.
but I think that they support continuing to fight, ageism as getting in the way of organizational success as opposed to supporting it. And here's my argument.
All right.
So, I really see your point here around institutional knowledge. And you're right. With the way, technology is moving and the way, the fast-paced world we live in, and even like just think of pre-COVID, post-COVID, like there's so many changes that have occurred that just there isn't a reason to continue to revisit that institutional knowledge when you've had to reinvent things so many times. So that makes perfect sense. But I do see value in what I will call maybe, institutional soft skills or institutional relationships.
I can buy that.
There are definitely some downsides to the way we work today. And one of those is, there is less of an opportunity for us to build meaningful relationships while we're in person with one another. And I think that when you're in an organization, that is really challenging when you may be working remotely, when you are new to an organization, maybe you're in your early 20s, you're right out of college, and your first job, is a hybrid work environment. You're at home 3 days a week and, maybe in the office 2 days a week, but not everyone's in the office on those 2 days. So you don't get that full experience. I think that there is a lot of knowledge to be gained from people who have been working in the workforce, longer, whether that be a manufacturing plant, whether that be a corporate office. There's a level of I would say there's definitely a hurdle for younger generations to fully understand how to build solid relationships and how they can affect your career trajectory and how they can also affect just getting work done on a daily basis. I think about a couple of different scenarios of like, I had to develop a relationship with another business partner or a colleague within, an HR team so that they could give me what I needed to get my work done, or so that I could give them what they needed to be effective. And that doesn't just happen overnight. You really got to kind of build those relationships. And I think that soft skills are really something that, we can talk about what that definition is, but soft skills are definitely something lacking.
Is that congruent with I have two Gen Z sons. Is that congruent with the way that they want to create relationships?
It could be.
That's
okay.
So that's where I fall in the argument, right? Is it congruent with? And I think it can be. I don't know that it is as much as we want it to be. We, the collective, we here want it
French,
to be.
Victorian we, yeah.
Right, yeah. And so I struggle with this because again, I feel like I'm 20, right? But I'm kind of at that age where I'm like, okay, I'm going to say this now. Somebody will pull it out. If anyone listens, will pull it out in 3 or 4 years and say, you said you were not relevant anymore because you've aged out. But I feel like I'm aging out. Like I really feel like if I were to go back into a corporate environment, I would be able to, because I've learned
your age would be here.
They would be here.
Your relevance would be here.
Right. I'm relevant because I study, I learn, we do all this stuff. I'm here, right? Like I'm down here with these people. I'm the opposite way of you, I think. But I'm with the others that are younger, more relevant because they're learning and living it as they're learning it. But my age is up here. And what I expect of those people here is very different than what they expect of me and how they actually give a crap about me. right? They look at me as, oh, he's the old guy trying to be cool. Like my kids think it's amazing. Like they think it's hilarious, not amazing, hilarious and weird that on certain social platforms, I have a following. They don't understand that. They're like, why? What do you do? Like, I'm not dancing on TikTok. No, right? But in this space that we are, there's a relevance and it's not to them. And so that's where I struggle. I think it's okay for us to say, you know what? We're experienced. It's okay for us to move on into life and do something else rather than fit into that corporate culture with the 20 and 30-year-old person.
Well, and I think relevancy is really kind of relative in a way, right? So, when you think about how your kids view you, it's going to be very different than maybe how, a 22-year-old out of college in your workplace is going to view you. They're definitely going to see you more as that guiding light and that, someone who can help them. Maybe it's a mentor, type relationship, or even just hey, like, I'm here to kind of make sure you don't step in a big pile of, really just making sure that you can kind of, and I think that's like ultimately the point I'm getting at is I do see where institutional knowledge was something that, someone who is further along in their career can offer. I think now it's really that ability to mentor and maybe fill in some of those gaps that, our kids these days just simply aren't learning because of the environment that we're in. To your point, though, it may not be relevant.
Every team keeps veteran leadership in the locker room.
See, I think we need a better term than mentor. I'll tell you why. For both parties to get what they need out of this relationship, it's got to be two-way.
Yeah.
And most mentor, the way that we've kind of grew up thinking about mentor, it was top down.
Yeah.
I'm mentor, you're mentee. I'm going to tell you shit. You're going to learn. Okay, that's it. And I think if we reframe that relationship, as you mentioned a second ago, if we reframe that relationship to where it's like, oh no, we're going to be partners. And yeah, I'm going to learn some stuff from you. You're 22. You just got out of college. You got some new things. I need to know those things.
Yeah.
I've been in this business for 25 years. You need to know some of those things. All right.
Yeah.
So let's roll up our sleeves. Let's have some fun and take that.
Tuesday on NBC, Jimmy Fallon and Bozoma St. John host the highly anticipated new competition show.
I hired 10 creatives from all walks of life. They will be battling it out to see who can impress the world's biggest brands.
This is a huge opportunity.
This is the battle for the next big idea.
This is not play.
We're spending millions of dollars.
I'm so excited to embark on this adventure with all of you.
May the best idea win!
On Brand with Jimmy Fallon. Series premiere Tuesday on NBC.
Wish you could become a morning person? You know the type, up before the sun, early morning runs, first one to the office with donuts and a smile. How do they do it? Easy. With the new Galaxy Watch 8, sleep tracking and personalized insights from Samsung Health help you improve so you can wake up to a whole new you. One who, dare I say it, skips the snooze? It's possible. Train your sleep with Galaxy Watch 8. Learn more at Samsung.com. Requires compatible Samsung Galaxy phone, Samsung Health app, and Samsung account.
The stigma of the word mentor out.
You could take that further. Well, okay, so let's look at that. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I'm 100% in on that, both feet. But a 55 or a 60-year-old employee reporting to a 24-year-old mid-line manager who started the company 4 years ago, how does that work? Now, I've seen it work. I've seen it not work.
I did it when I was 17 years old.
Yeah, I've seen it work and I've seen it not work.
Here's how it works. If you're competent, here's when that breaks down. Is it comes down to competence. It comes down to the work, the output, etc. skills. Like I remember taking over at Walmart. I took over as an assistant manager. I took over sporting goods and hardware, a bunch of kind of departments where there's a lot of older men that were working. And at first they're kind of standoffish, like, who's this young buck? This, that, and the other. And I gained their trust by working 120 hours a week. Like I just outworked them. I didn't try to, I didn't try to tell them what to do. I just did it. And then I probably only took a month, and they were just like, man, you kill it, man. You're doing great stuff. I'm like, hey, we're a team. So I deflected all that stuff back to them and just said, hey, man, we're a team. So we got to get this department right. We all got to work together.
What if I told you that your boss skydives, Tim in marketing is a magician, and Sam in accounting does sums in his head while standing on his hands? Seeing sides of the people you work with but never see, sides that inform and inspire their work and that can inspire yours, is what The Talent Show is all about. Email me, Tom Alexander, host of The Talent Show, at talentshow@backboneinc.com and show us what you got. I look forward to seeing you on The Talent Show.
So competence, communication, there's ways to make that work. And you've seen it. We've all seen it. But Lauren, how do you, when you do audits, getting back to the business, when you do audits, how do you know if they're doing this well or if it's a problem?
Good question.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, the good news is there's a lot of laws and regulations out there that help us with the guardrails. But the bad news is there's a lot of laws and regulations out there.
Yeah, I was going to ask how much of what you do is guided by the laws and regulations as opposed to your experience. Like where is it?
Yeah. I would say they're fairly equal. The laws, regulations, best practices is really what kind of creates the guardrails. And then where the creative, the art of this comes in is the experiences that me and my team have had. Me personally, I've been at, a lot of large employers throughout my career, and they've been global, international, employers. So it's been, I've got exposed to a lot of different things that not every HR person in every HR role across the country has had the opportunity to experience. And so that's where the science is really around the guardrails that you kind of are just put in place because of the laws. But then, it's really the experience that kind of adds the color and fills in the rest of the picture. And what we like to do is really kind of, take the approach of, okay, what are you doing well? Let's start there. And how can we build upon that? And then if there's areas where you're not doing so great, usually it's not because you're doing it absolutely wrong, like maliciously. It's just because you don't know. You don't know that there's a law in Albuquerque that requires this, that, and the other.
They didn't keep Bob around.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Bob knew it's that. The audits and even the process improvements that we do, all of our process improvement recommendations come from standard best practices, also wanting to keep within compliance, but also, what have we seen work in our past? What haven't we? And I think that's the beauty of, the team that I have is not only can I leverage my experiences, but I can leverage theirs. And that's also the beauty that our clients have access to. I mean, you get to, you might be working for a company that employs 250 people. I'm your, interim HR director who's going to be with you guys for 3 months while we're helping you search, or your recruiting team searching for the permanent replacement. It's you get access to the thought process of someone who's worked at larger companies for free. Really, that's the bonus of this. You're paying for our hours to do the work, but then you get to kind of pick our brain. And I think that might be why I really love what I do, and maybe why I feel so passionate about fighting ageism is I do think that there's a lot of lessons to be learned and a lot of experiences to be shared. And I think that, everyone deserves a level of relevancy in what they're doing. And
so I want to go back to one of the things you said very early on. It was about assumptions.
Yep.
And again, correct me where I get this wrong, but it seems to me that assumptions are a two-way street. If you're younger and you assume that person can't keep up, you're assuming that.
Yep.
If you're older and you have an assumption about young talent, that maybe they want to do things on digital, or they want to take shortcuts.
Yeah.
And you're making that assumption. It seems to me that assumptions are the underlying enemy here, that we have to, and this could be we're talking about ageism, but we could talk about racism, sexism. We could go into all the isms if we wanted to, but it just seems like there's a great teachable moment on both sides. Again, I'm going back to, it's really easy to kind of blame the company, super easy. But I think that the individual has some responsibility in this as well.
For sure.
What do you think? What's your take on assumptions, and how do you help folks kind of reconfigure their minds around what is and how they destroy assumptions, etc.?
Yeah, these assumptions and biases, are happening consciously and subconsciously. And what we've done through some of the training that we've done with our clients, we will cater like training courses to the different topics that are of importance. And so some of the things we like to do is a lot of role playing, as well as a lot of providing examples. And because I think that, there can be just some really straightforward situations where, you might be someone who's making an assumption just because, like you said, this person can't keep up physically.
Right.
That may be true. Maybe there are some facts behind that, but not every statement that someone makes is absolutely factual. And there are laws in this country that, prevent you from discriminating against someone who might have a physical disability or impairment. And so I think it's just, assumptions and bias, whenever we can, bring that up in the clients that we work with to really think through, what does that look like in a given day in your organization? Let's talk through the common scenarios that your employees are facing, and then let's poke holes into that. What areas of that scenario could bias creep in? And this is generally speaking, not just with ageism, but where can that creep in? And let's build, training and or policies and or, open door conversations around that, as opposed to focusing maybe on a component of ageism that really isn't applicable to your specific organization. But I agree with you. Assumptions, biases are at the core of almost every employee relations issue that is out there.
Yeah.
And it's hard to overcome. We have them, we've been taught them, and we make a lot of assumptions just because we don't like to ask a lot of questions.
For a long time, they've been swept under the rug. And people just moved on and went about their day. I've got a question around technology in this process. A lot of things that we talk about in HR, whether it be engagement or compliance or, throw a dart, hit something and pick it, can be managed with technology and intervened by human for quality, right? Does ageism fall into that? Is there a tech out there? And I'm asking because, one, I don't know, but two, I really just don't. I don't know. I've never followed it before. I've just always been nice to people. Is there a technology out there, or can this be managed by technology? This whole conundrum of ageism.
I got a take on that as well. But Lauren, you're our guest.
So
can the older crowd run the technology? Is the question.
Yeah.
But ching. So I believe that this is a subject that is nuanced, and my take is that technology can get us a part of the way there, but not all the way there. There are different tools and resources that are out there that could potentially help with combating ageism, fighting ageism, training, to help leaders spot ageism, in a better way. Definitely, I'm sure there is someone who's creating something right now that, is going to be out next week. But
it's built by AI.
Yeah, I do think that in these sticky, like nuanced, facets of just being human, I do believe that having people who can make sense of an algorithm or make sense of a resources or tools output is going to be much more beneficial than relying heavily on tech in this aspect.
I'll give you
20 years from now, totally different story. But right now, I feel like that's where we're at.
Just because I've actually thought deeply about this subject, I'm going to not disagree with you, but just modify what you're saying. You can audit performance management, internal mobility, compensation, and your ATS based on demographic data, and you'll know if you have a problem or not. Yep. So you don't need another piece of technology, although that could be something that goes into those times in real time and understands, is there a disproportionate something happening that we should know about, whether or not that's gender or age or race or any sexual orientation or any of those types of things. But that data is already there. Like, we don't need another tool. Good God, we don't need more technology.
No, it's there.
The data
ties in. Then that ties into learning, like a Whisk or something like that, where there's on-demand training being served up.
Yeah,
but if you want to know if you have a problem, which is Lauren deals with this every day in her business. If you want to know you have a problem, you can do that in a week. I can find out just by looking in those systems and to see who's getting promoted, who's getting the compensation that's coming up in the ATS and the pipeline, who's making it through.
You can absolutely measure it tactically like that.
Right.
But what those resources and those tools and those systems and that data won't measure is opinion, belief.
100%.
That's where I think the nuance is like, I can definitely determine that I have a gender pay gap situation here. I can determine that, we've promoted, the last 8 people we've promoted have been under the age of 30. These are facts that I can support.
It becomes a game of what do you do?
Exactly. What do you do with that data?
That's right. And that's human. Right now, that's absolutely human.
As you're saying that, I'm thinking of a tool like a Higher Logic, for example. When you're measuring interviewing, right, and you're going through a system or when you're interviewing and the system's pulling back notes and red flags and saying, hey, here's a trend we're seeing, right? Everyone's under the age of 24. You're asking these questions that aren't relevant up the scale. It's interesting.
Yeah. And I think, the point too is really around any data analytics that you're kind of pulling is, what do you do with that information? When that 100%. Red flag goes off in the system, it's like, then what? And I think that is where the human intervention, where expertise, where training is really going to bridge the gap, and I don't see that leaving anytime soon. Whereas it may have left maybe, some aspects of HR, because now we feel really confident with the way the system is set up or the data is performing. Right. And we know that, the trigger to making that change is this tweak we got to do in the system. This is one of those topics among many that are of a relations, situation that just requires that.
Yeah. Once you get the data back and you identify there's a manager that's just not promoting people over the age of 40, well, then you can go and have that one-on-one and talk them through, do some training, etc. I'm fighting ageism personally by only having 20 years of work experience in LinkedIn.
Yeah. That's
so I delete everything prior to 2000. There's nothing there. Now, when it gets
what were you doing?
It doesn't matter. It's not relevant.
Why would you ask that question, Lauren?
It's irrelevant what I was doing. I interned at the Smithsonian twice. Okay, irrelevant. While yes, that was a special experience, but it's irrelevant. And so every I look at the fives, and so when it gets to 2025, I'm gonna go delete all the 2005. I'll always have just 20 years of experience.
Mm-hmm.
Now, right or wrong, I'm just doing it just because I can. But I want to get kind of a take on a horror story that you either been through or heard without brands, without names.
No, tell
or
us the brands.
No. At Heinz.
You
no.
always take away the fun part.
Oh, no, don't
Jesus.
tell us. No. That's not the point. It's really what I love about the way that you do situational stuff and scenarios and walk people through that training of putting people into that. Some of those are based in there's horror stories that happened. And so you've clearly seen something ageism at play.
Yes.
But the most egregious is what I want. The one not nuanced. The most egregious. I want it to be the most egregious one that you can remember.
Most egregious.
This guy was shooting crossbows off the.
So I'll tell you why I'm asking the question.
Yeah.
When COVID first started, and the layoffs happened at the end of 2020, like that massive layoff that happened, it disproportionately impacted women, and specifically Black women or African American women.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why did that happen? Like, who made that decision without looking at data? Like, without looking down and saying, hey, whoa, we're laying off 10,000 employees and 9,000 of them are women. So like, I could see that with ageism too. I could see someone doing this and looking down and say, okay, everybody over the age of 55. Doesn't matter what they do, doesn't matter what the department is, just they have high salaries. We need to make the cuts. I could see someone, not to blame finance, I could see someone in finance basically making that decision, saying, yeah, cut.
Yeah.
Even though it's against the law.
Yeah. So you're spot on kind of how these things go down. There should be more of a checks and balance in place because you don't want to disproportionately affect one type of employee versus another.
Right.
And that's even just a legal opinion too from, any employment attorney out there.
100%.
But also, I think the most egregious, situation that I've been a part of, and unfortunately there's been more than one, common theme is, needing to create more sacrificial lambs in order to take out the individuals you need to take out so that you don't get sued.
I see. That's clever in a really dark way. So you're trying to get rid of Bob, but instead of getting rid of Bob, you downside the department Bob's in.
You downsize the department, or you're like, okay, the average age of the 5 people we're firing today is over 40.
Right.
We need 2 young individuals to fire to drag the average down. Or we need a unprotected class a part of this mix so we can fire this protected class.
Now, this is a fun role to be in, right?
Oh, man. That's
figuring out that puzzle.
No.
Figuring out that puzzle.
I wish we would have started the podcast here. This is great.
We'll shift this to the front. We'll
so
shift
dark.
it to the front. Let me mark the time.
Do you think... Oh, go ahead, Brian.
No, go ahead.
Do you think finance knows any of the HR laws?
They know the ones they can't. They know what they can't do.
Okay,
but they don't care. And I think they know some of them. They know some of them, but not all of them.
They know them when counsel comes down and says, "Hey,
you can't
what are you doing?" All right. So
they just explain the risk. Yes, we can do it.
However,
here's the risk associated.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Outside of corporate, okay, I'm thinking professional sports teams, right?
Okay.
Running back becomes 30 years old. They immediately become the next name on that cut list when the next draft comes up. So I understand
it's an example of ageism.
Yeah. This has been run this way since the beginning of sports, right?
Right.
They become 30. They're no longer as fast. They can't take a beating as much. Okay. Same could be said for the person at Home Depot. Okay, now they're 55. They can't climb the ladder to the top rung, right? They can't get to the top shelf. Why is it different in professional sports
They're independent contractors.
Yeah, I was going to say free agency, and
Mm-hmm.
they get paid a lot of money during that first handful, like
they do.
cover
Yeah,
you for the
right.
duration of your life. You know,
They do.
They're independent. How the league gets away with it, all leagues.
But that doesn't
Get
remove
away
the
with-
ageism part of it.
Oh no, the ageism is alive and well. Age in all sports, by the way. That's not just football. All sports, ageism. If you can't, there's already a crop of people that are coming up that can do it better than you.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and you're
because
an
they're
independent
9 years
contractor.
younger than you.
Yeah.
And they're an independent contractor.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that's really it. Yeah. It's just the distinction between the two. But the issue is pervasive and it still exists and it still is what it is. It's just, no one cares because the laws don't apply to someone who's an independent. But, it is worth noting that, sports is such a physical, it's just physical. And we all know that our bodies break down year over year, time over. It's just the way it kind of is.
Yeah. It's different,
I don't like
and it's
it either,
accepted.
but you can get away with it in that realm, and you can also get away with it with, the independent contractors you might have in a corporate office. There's an advantage to having 1099 versus W-2 in a lot of ways, and that's one of them is. If you do want to let somebody go for a reason that isn't on the up and up, you can easily do that with an independent contractor. You can't do that as easily with a W-2.
Well, employees have rights.
Make it right, but
no, it doesn't
they
make it
can
right.
get away with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been fantastic. Lauren, thank you so much for coming on the show and schooling us.
Yeah.
And
We're
the
done
audience.
already?
It's just been great.
Yeah, I know. It went so fast. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Very, very well. Ryan, are we going to do the laugh track at the end so that we know that it's the end?
No. We'll just hit stop.